Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me today is a young lady who is very passionate about the importance of healing and understanding the connection to that as it pertains to going through challenging and difficult times. And we're not just talking about the physical healing, we're talking about emotional healing, mental healing, and of course, spiritual healing. So she's very passionate about this. She is doing great works in this area to try to pour into other people to help them navigate that path. And so, of course, when I had the opportunity to catch a snippet of her story and what the works that she's involved in, I knew that she would be an ideal person to have on the show today. And she's taken out some time out of her busy schedule to be with us to not only share with what she's doing, but also to actually share a little bit of her journey with us to kind of help us to be, of course, inspired and encouraged and empowered as we all deal with our own respective challenges in life. So without any further delay, let me introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Majaya Ryans. Thank you, Majaya, for being with us today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for offering me time on your show. I'm excited to talk about it.
Absolutely,
It's
absolutely.
Let's get into it. And we got a lot to talk about.
All right, well, we're gonna do that. We're gonna talk about it. So, before we get into the thick of things, I do, of
Mhm.
course, want to give you an opportunity to just share a little bit about, yourself. Give everybody a little taste of who Majay is. You know what you do, where you're from, and anything else that you'd like to just share to kind of, again, just give them a little tease because we're gonna get into it a little bit more deeper. But
Mhm.
please do, give us a little bit more detail about who you are
Right.
and what you're all about.
Okay. Well, again, my name is Majaya Ryans. I am a social worker in Texas. I am originally from New Orleans. I moved to Texas 10 years ago last month. So I've been in Houston for 10 years now. That's still surreal to me. But I I come from, if anyone knows, New Orleans is different. I grew up, I wouldn't say I had a bad life childhood, but growing up in New Orleans kind of contributed to my path as a social worker. You don't know these things until you get into these environments and places that kind of bring up your childhood, and then you're like, okay, so this part of me is contributing to where I am today. But nonetheless, I am a mom of two boys. I we live in Houston, as I just stated. I currently work as a medical social worker for DaVita, and also I am a part-time therapist on the side. I also host a podcast called Healed Yet. I'm over the Circle of Healing on Facebook. If you ever need a space to just come in and vent and talk, I am working on getting that group up and running even more now that I have time to do it, and also working on a lot of other things towards healing. So I'm excited to kind of talk today about what got me on this path and
Absolutely.
starting my podcast.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. Again, great work that you're doing, and healing is such an important topic in,
Oh
in
yeah.
in our lives, and everybody doesn't doesn't fully
Mm-mm.
understand it and the dynamics about it and how it's so necessary. Again, that's after we've gone through our respective challenges and in some instances very traumatic and life altering experiences. So that healing and how we heal, and of course allowing the time to properly heal. All
Yeah.
of those components are so critical, and I know you're gonna enlighten us even further about that subject matter. So that's what again, this is great to have you on board for that. So as you said, you got a lot of things that you're working on, a lot of things that you're looking to do. But as we talk about our journeys of life and the experiences that we have, you can't really
Yeah.
tell the story without starting from the beginning. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. And so, with that said, I would like to ask you, and you started a little bit telling us about
Oh yeah.
this, but if you would take us back to your childhood. You said you're from New Orleans. We may have listeners on board who've never been to New Orleans. They've only heard about it on TV, or maybe they know somebody who happens to be from there. But take us back to that time and walk us through what was it like for you growing up. Any fond memories that you have to share, as well as if there was any challenges that you'd like to share that went along with that life of growing up in New Orleans. Please do kind of give us a little bit more in depth perspective of what that experience was like for you.
Um. Okay. So of course I was born in New Orleans, downtown Seven Ward area. I lost my dad when I was only about 4 years old, so I grew up with just my mom and my grandma. But I lived with my mom, but I also was with my grandma as well. Time she worked. Growing up in New Orleans for me with a single parent was not as bad as it could have been because my mom did have like support, but it was growing up without a father. I would say what did play a large role in my life. I didn't know it until as I got older. I'd been journaling all my life. So I created a journal where I talked to my dad. So that was the first person who my journal was dedicated to. And for me, he was like that safe space from the world where I felt like I had a area of someone to talk to throughout my life about things. Um, I grew up with many different, I guess, friendships, trying to find my way of who, where I fit in at. Um, growing up in New Orleans, I wouldn't say I had the best education opportunities as most cities and states may have, but I'm proud to say I still turned out fine. But I would say I have some really great memories with my family. I am very, very family oriented. We always had family events at different people's houses, from barbecues. If you know New Orleans, we have crawfish balls, we have Mardi Gras. So New Orleans, we're really big on celebrating things, partying with family, and just spending time with people that we love. So I can honestly say that to this day, me and my family still do those things, whether we have to travel, because that's important to us. I moved out of New Orleans as soon as I graduated high school. I would say a year later, when crime just began. No, don't get me wrong. New Orleans has always had crime. It was bad to where I would go to parties as kids and we'll have to run away because they're having shootouts and things. But as I got older, it got worse. And I also felt that I did need a change of environment to kind of figure out myself. So I actually moved to Houston without my mom, brother. It was just me, and I had relatives that lived here. But I moved here, and I feel like ever since I moved here, I kind of found myself as I got older and figured out what I like to do. I went to school for criminal justice. That wasn't what I wanted to do, so I got into school in 2018 for my master's in social work online at Walden. And right in there before social work, what got me to it was that after I had my son, I experienced postpartum depression and that anxiety. No one I could go to talk about these things to. No one understood what I was feeling. No one understood what anxiety was. I was going to the hospital. That's how bad it was of the symptoms, and no one can make it make sense. And that's when, before I even reached out to a therapist or anybody, I went to buying books because I didn't know where to go. I didn't know about a therapist or these things at the time. So I went to reading on anxiety and postpartum depression. And that's when I figured out my community needs to know these things. Black women, black people in general, older people from the generation before me obviously knew nothing about it because I went to different family members and friends, and not that they didn't know nothing about it, they didn't know what to do, what I should do. So that's what got me into coaching and kind of trying to get the word out there. I started off with women, but I'm like, men need it as well. So here I am today. I became a social worker, working towards my clinical license. That way I'm able to open a private practice with a niche that's similar to what I like to do instead of working for someone and what they like to do and what they want to focus on. And just learning right now different tools that my community don't have access to, like all these different forms of therapy, neurofeedback therapy, so many different things that first they make it to where people in poverty don't know about it because they can't afford it. And secondly, it's not even in the environments of where those people would be at. So in my path of becoming a social worker, I've learned a lot, and I'm here to kind of try to spread it to these places that with the small voices that I can bring it into those communities and be a advocate for them as well.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Of course, thank you for your transparency and sharing what
Yes.
even in this early going of our time together, and sharing that what you've experienced and had challenges with the postpartum depression, and I just love the fact that you were very proactive in trying to find more information about it, knowing that you didn't really have people that you could go to that would understand what was going on, and just deciding for yourself, I need to know more about this, and then even more than that, And then this is where God comes in, where it's like I go through something, then he leads me to learn more about
Yes.
it, and then as I learn more about it for me, now he's triggered something inside of you that says, okay, now that you know about it, share it with other people. you
Yes.
know
That's how he
use
works.
use this work, use this opportunity that started out as a storm for you, use it as a way to bless other people in the gift that I'm giving you, of being a social worker, of being a person that people can come alongside, and then creating other spaces out that are thinking outside of the box with, whether
Yes.
it's your podcast, whether it's your special groups or anything like that, to further reach people. Just to get a little bit more insight, obviously I know a little bit about postpartum depression, but typically when we talk about depression, usually depression is centered around having lost something. In postpartum depression, you don't typically, think of it as, I lost a child or anything like that. And so it's like, how would you, for people who may not be very familiar with the terminology of postpartum depression, and what's uniquely different about it in comparison to other forms of depression, if you would kind of share with us not only a little bit more information about what that feels like, what are the symptoms like, what kind of a general, I guess the elementary version, if you will, for us as to understanding it, and just also, I guess, just getting some clarity in terms of like how often, or how much is this like a thing that happens with people? Is it something that sometimes maybe even goes undiagnosed, where a
Hmm.
woman may be feeling this way and doesn't know that I didn't know that this is what it was. So if you would kind of tell us a little bit more about that.
So, for me, what postpartum was like, and I'll say overall what postpartum is like. It is basically after you have a child. There's something that I learned is called it's a 2 week. You have a 2 week period to for it to be considered baby blues. So in that time, you either very upset, you're crying, you're kind of just overall just sad because you just went through a giving birth to a child, which is not easy. But for some women, you experience just losing yourself. Like you say, depression is kind of centered around loss. You're gaining a life, someone that's dependent on you, and for some women, that can be overwhelming. It can feel very alone. You lose sleep. So, sleep is very important just for mental health overall. So, you're losing sleep. Some women just do not like their appearance anymore. So, they go through that. Bonding with your baby in that time can be hard. And then when a woman feels that way, then you feel guilt because why do I feel like this about my child? Why can't I hold this child, want to be a bond with this child right now? So it is the guilt because we have all these standards about what a new mom should look like. And society and social media has made that even worse. So people tend to suffer in silence and don't go for help because they don't really understand what they're feeling. And they don't know
Hmm.
what they're feeling is a mental illness, which is in the DSM-5. So it can go undiagnosed because in the hospital they tell you they kind of normalize these things. Depending on your doctor, some do educate you on when it's time to go see a psychiatrist and when it's time to get help. But in my experience, I didn't get any of that from my doctor. So I didn't know after the 2 weeks, I was like, it's getting worse. Your anxiety gets worse. You're scared something's gonna happen to the baby. What if the baby, stop breathing? It's a million things that goes on in a mom's
Hmm.
head, and all of your free time is dedicated to bottles. They say sleep while the baby sleep. You can't. It's hard. So you experience a lot, and from person to person it's different. It can appear as depression, or it can appear as anxiety, to where you having panic attacks, just worrying about every little thing, to where you're not sleeping, you're just up looking at the baby all night, or just thinking about how much you're not doing as a mother, just finding things to be upset with yourself about or feel guilty about. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. And thank you for, again, educating me and anybody who has an opportunity to listen to this podcast
mhm.
on just understanding a little bit more, because I was a little confused thinking, and you immediately pointed it out. Yeah, it's still about a loss. It's just more the loss is now centered on self. Like I feel like
Yes.
I've lost, maybe my identity. I feel like I've lost, perhaps a connection with this newborn child that I should be
Yep.
all in, in my mind, I should be all loving and all, excited about, but I'm not. Or, other things that, just, it could just be the general feeling of just overwhelmed of
Yes.
what it means to just, I'm now a mother and now I'm responsible for this life, you know. And as you were saying, discussing this, I was also thinking to myself, what could, I was thinking about the male perspective of this, assuming, of course,
Hmm.
that the male is around, at the time, let's just say that this birth takes place, understanding how he should be, responding, or wondering if, I know you said that some doctors are good about talking about this stuff and then some just kind of normalize it. It's almost like I'm thinking, and maybe you can comment to that. I'm almost thinking like, should it even be a normal practice that, once a
It
woman
should.
has a child, that perhaps the mother and, of course, assuming that the dad is around and actively present, that both of them should perhaps like maybe go through something immediately after just to understand that these things may arise. Don't take them lightly. And this is how each other can support one another in, I guess, processing through that. Is that something that you would identify with, or perhaps have had, some, I guess, in your research of the matter, or have to discuss that? Has that ever been something that you've experienced in talking to men, or making that connection with all of this so that everybody understands what's going on?
I think it would be really good even before to educate on what is likely or what can happen after pregnancy. And I hear it a lot. She ain't been right since the baby. This relationship haven't
Hmm.
been right since the baby. And instead of looking at, that's another thing that contributes to postpartum, because you feel like you're losing a lot of things at once. And you also feel like no one understands. But it's about, before having a baby, being aware and knowing that this can't happen. Because I noticed with some women or men or couples in general feel that this pregnancy has been the best. I can see myself going through it. I they just think because they've been so happy that this is unlikely to happen after the baby, which is not true. Because after that baby, you change, your hormones change a lot. Your body goes through a lot in that time, so you just don't know what, some people don't experience it at all and some do. But I think getting educated about it before going to these parenting classes that offer education about it, there's a lot online. Afterwards it would be nice too that be a part of those things. But with a new baby it could be difficult to do that. But I know some people have doulas and people like that that kind of walk them through the whole pregnancy and there after the baby and make them feel like they have support. And of course, everyone's not fortunate to have that. But I say just have support around you, because after the baby, you do need help. And that's what I think it is. Just having supportive people over. Get your support together. So this first week I got mom. Second week I have my best friend. And because the man probably can take off some time, but still working to care for you and the baby as well. So just having your support in place. Therapist. Make sure you're in therapy beforehand, because this is a life changing thing for you. And that's what I think the shock is. Like, this is my new life. And you feel dark and stuck. Like, this cannot be what I'm going to be experiencing forever.
Wow, wow. And with something you just said that I thought was pretty interesting. You spoke about the therapy aspect, but you spoke about it even before the birth.
Oh yeah.
We all, and I talk about this quite often on various shows where, you know, the importance and value in therapy, and how, of course, for decades, we as a community of people, of Black people, we've oftentimes shied away from therapy as if it's something
Yes.
that's taboo, something that's for the crazy folks. We don't do that kind of thing, or it's a sign of weakness if you decide to do that. And so, but this today, you mentioning therapy, while that concept of there, discussion wise, I do find it interesting that you say, hey, it's not necessarily a bad idea to
Mhm.
look at doing therapy before you have the baby. And to me, immediately the thing that comes to mind is, when you think about somebody getting married, how you have premarital counseling.
Yep.
So why not have pre-baby counseling?
A good
This,
example.
yeah. So I just think that that's a phenomenal thing. And it seems so elementary in the moment of me saying it, but
Hmm.
how oftentimes we just never really think about that. And then we wait until we're in the moment, and then all of a sudden we're confused, we're all over the place, and we may or may not be getting the help that we need, even if we're aware of the help. again, because of the whole taboo of I don't want to look weak, I don't want to look
Yeah.
crazy, or what have you.
Yeah.
And one more thing I'll ask you before we move forward with the postpartum. Is it something that I know, like, for example, you said you have two children. Uh, is this something that when if a woman experiences it after child one, is it typically something that reoccurs on the second child? Does it normally get better, or is it possible that, hey, I don't experience it on the first one, but if I have multiple children, I might experience it later on? How does that? Is there anything that speaks to that, or is it just one of those things that just doesn't really have a predictor to it as to when it might come up?
It really doesn't have a predictor to it. I mean, I would, in my experience, I didn't have it the second time,
Mm-hmm.
and probably because I kind of try to prepare myself a little bit
Mm-hmm.
better that time around. But I mean, it can show up. It also depends on what you're going through in life already. That's the big indicator of how active the pregnancy will be. If you're already struggling, doing it by yourself, a single parent before the baby even get here, it's a lot of stressors before the pregnancy that can indicate if it will likely be present afterwards. But it doesn't matter. It,
Okay.
it it does not mean you'll do have it every time, or it does not mean you won't have it again. I mean, you didn't have it the first one, you could possibly have it the second one. It just happens.
Gotcha. And I guess that falls in line with just if we're speaking in general terms about the storms of life, whether we're talking
Yeah.
about postpartum depression, whether we're talking about financial challenges, whether we're talking about some other health challenges or anything
hmm
of the
And
like.
genetics
Yeah.
is always the number one indicator too.
Wow. Well, that's good stuff. Well, thank you
hmm
for enlightening us, and definitely myself, because like I said, I've heard the term many times and knew a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but just to hear from somebody who's directly experienced it and perhaps even worked with people who have dealt
Yeah.
with it before, it's good to get a little bit more clarity, especially again, also from a male perspective.
Mhm.
So any men that have the opportunity to listen to this podcast and perhaps are dads or dads to be, this is definitely something to keep in mind, and perhaps a conversation that you and your expected, the expected mother should, think about, the
Yeah.
pre-planning, as we just talked about earlier. So when we're thinking about our journeys, and again, you shared quite a bit about your initial upbringing, growing up in New Orleans, making the big move to Houston, having people that you knew here, but pretty much for the most part, kind of it's a brand new adventure where you're kind of on
Yeah.
your own and discovering yourself and who you are and all that good stuff. And change is always a big thing. I did something similar in relocating to Dallas. I've been here, a little bit over 10
Mhm.
years now, and didn't really know anybody. So just new adventures, new experiences, new
Yeah.
explorations, if you will. But as we go through our life and our journeys and our ups and downs that go along with it, there are going to come points in time, as I always say, you live long enough. This is going to happen where you come across an experience, a challenge, in a moment of adversity that hits a little different. That when this comes about, crosses your path, when it knocks on your door, even if you had a good track record of being able to navigate through
hmm
difficult times, every now and then there's that weight that's just a little too heavy to lift. There's that pressure that's a little bit overbearing to the point to where you start to question, am I
hmm
going to be able to get through this? This is a bit much. I don't know, for the first time maybe, or from one of those rare moments, I don't know if I'm going to pull through this. So if you would, tell us about a time where you experienced a situation like that where you kind of doubted. You were in this jam, this bind, this tight.
Yeah.
You didn't know how this was going to work out. You were doubting yourself. Again, obviously, you're here today, so we know you made it, but maybe back then you weren't sure. Kind of walk us through what that journey was like for you, and what did you have to do to eventually get to a point of starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel, that breakthrough moment. What was that like for you?
I would say the toughest thing I've experienced that I'm finally able to talk about. This is actually the first time I ever talk about it. I haven't even brought it to my own podcast yet. But 2 years ago, I went through a a really bad breakup with someone that I was with a while. And I'm usually a person, like you said, I got the tools. I know how to handle things. I just take time away or vacation, whatever. But this was one of those things that God put in my pet and was like, either you gonna try to do it on your own, are you gonna ask for help from me? And of course, I tried to do it on my own. I was in a very dark time. I felt that I honestly was by, I lost friends, and at the three friends that were the closest to me at that time, I lost them as well. So I felt that God was putting me by myself because He needed me to face this by myself and stop, using don't use anyone else to talk to. I want you to talk to me. And that's now that I'm in this place, I can say that. Like, I was 10 nights of just sitting in the bathroom crying, hiding from my kids, just feeling like a failure. Like I let them down. Like I'm now, it was a very dark time that I just can't even explain. It felt like I would be there that way forever. And no matter how many people tell you, "Oh, you're gonna get through this. I've been through this. You're gonna laugh at this in a couple of years." It's like no one's just healing, and in the midst of that healing, the very beginning can believe that. All they see now is what they're feeling in that moment. And in that time, I had no one to turn to but God, and journaling is my thing. That's how I pray. That's how I get things off my mind. And I can say the only thing that I had in place was my therapist. So I was able to call, like, set up a session immediately. Like, I need help. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I never experienced. I've been in a lot of relationships, not a lot, but I've been in relationships, but I never experienced like a real, like, heartbreak, I guess. I would say it makes you question yourself as a person, as a mom, as everything that you stand for, because you thought you had your whole life planned out with someone. Even though you knew it wasn't perfect, you still feel that you had everything planned out. And when God, like they say, God laughs at your plans because you know you had it planned out, but that's not what I had planned out for you. And to this day, I feel that if I wouldn't have went through that, I definitely wouldn't be where I am. So that was the darkest time of my life, was going through that, having to live in the same house, having to do, continue the same routines I had in life, constantly being reminded of what happened, still having a co-parent. And while going through that, I felt that no one could help me in the way that I wanted but God. Even my therapist, I mean, we talk, I got through talking, and I'm a person that people, even though it's affecting me seriously, people can't see it. When I'm telling you, I'm probably laughing about it, or I'm like, I just can't believe. But really, when I get off that call, or whatever it is that's going on, that's when I have that time to myself to sit, like, I can't believe I'm going through this. Like, what, why me? That time, like, why me? Why right now? I'm trying to do this. I already got a stressful job. I already got all these things going on. Like, why would you throw this in my pet right now?
Wow, wow. Let me first off, thank you for your transparency and sharing
Of
that.
course.
You know, going through breakups, are never easy, especially when, and again, if you've had enough relationships in life, there we have those that okay, I'm good, we're done, and I
Mm-hmm.
moved on, and then, but again, even in those relationships, and every now and then, there's that one relationship that is it hits a little different. The breakup is a little bit
Yes.
more painful. The dynamics of it is a little bit more involved, and it hits you. It just hits you like a ton of bricks that landed on you, and
That's
then
exactly what it's
I
like.
think it's also critical to understand this. As I'm, of course, I'm still getting to know you, and as I'm hearing your story, immediately, I mean, just knowing the kind of work that you do, and just just the snippets of things that I'm just hearing in this time that we have together today, it's clear that for you to do what you do speaks to the fact that you're a person who is, again, known for being the encourager, being the one who comes alongside other people. And
Oh my
so
God.
when you serve in that role, and I'm like that too, when you serve in the role of the encourager, people have this mindset that you just handle everything so well,
So
and
well.
you always stay smooth, and even keel and level headed, and nothing shakes you, nothing breaks you. And the thing about the encouragers, we're real good at at, at visually
Yes.
making that be the case. We don't usually let you see us sweat. We don't usually let you see us flinch, but having no idea about the weight and the pressures that we carry inside, not only personal stuff that we're dealing with, but then the people that we come alongside, even though it's not a good thing for us to do. One of the weaknesses that we have as encouragers is that sometimes we take on your burden, like
Yeah.
as if it's ours, and sometimes we take on more seriousness to it than you
Then that
do,
person,
and we have to like pause for a moment, like,
like,
wait a
oh,
minute, this is not my
whose
problem.
life is this?
Why am I stressing
But
about their problem? And they're not even stressing about their problem. And so when we find ourselves in our own moment, when it's time for us to, stop trying to rescue and save everybody else, who do we go to? And initially the reaction is okay, well, I could save everybody else. I can save me, what? And then we find that rude awakening moment where no, you can't do that. You can't save you. There's only one person who can save you. And you and I both know that is required of us to lean into God. And so
yes,
when God sees that while we're doing good work, but we're trying to perhaps, be him. We're trying to do him, whether we're doing that with the people that we serve or that if we're doing it with our own stuff. Sometimes what he has to do is he has to kind of blow up our situation. He's
yes,
got to blow that whole thing up and bring you to a point. And it's not a punishment. It's an opportunity
awakening.
it's an awakening. It's an opportunity to let me pull you to the side here. Let's create an isolation moment where it's me and you. I need to break you down to the point to where it's clear that you have nobody else to turn to, but me. Whether you want to or not, you're going to have to talk to me. And
Yeah.
again, I'm not going to force your hand to do it, but I'm going to let these walls close in on you just enough, not to destroy you, but just enough for you to say, okay, let's talk. And that's all he's waiting
Finally,
for.
I'm already like,
You know,
okay, got it.
that's what
Okay,
that's what he,
yeah,
okay. I get, it's almost like,
get
back in the
it.
day when you were a kid and somebody put your arm behind your back, you're like, uncle, okay, okay.
Okay,
I
yeah,
get you. Okay. You made your point, but that's what he's waiting
okay.
for. And
Point.
so when you get to that moment, then he's like, now that I got your attention, now that you're focused on me and not yourself and not on everything else, you know, I can now pour into you and tell you why you're going through what you're going through so that we can get you from where you are to the point to where I have you to be, which is in your calling, in your walk, in your purpose that I have for you, though. The very reason why I created you to begin with. And so I see your situation, things that you've shared already, and I look at the work that you're doing today. How can you speak to somebody about healing if you don't know what it means to
You
be
don't know.
wounded and broken? Yeah, you can give me all your book smarts, all your research and all of that.
That's
And it may
nothing.
sound all warm and fuzzy and good, but people who are hurting, they can feel when somebody is authentically and genuinely speaking to them beyond a textbook, beyond a class that they took, that they're speaking from a personal space and they're connecting with me. They're resonating with me. They're showing me empathy and compassion. But at the same time, they're also putting forth accountability. They're also putting forth, strength and resiliency and courage to let's ignite that pathway towards healing. Let's get you out of this dark place by, removing that shame factor, removing that embarrassment factor, removing that I can do it all on my own and by myself factor. And then, leading you accordingly down a path that's going to allow you to surrender to the right sources. And in this case, lean into God, understand that there's power in that. There's power in that relationship.
Yeah.
And I know that you may not always be able to perhaps speak boldly in that regard. I know sometimes when, depending upon the workspace that you're in and things like that, that there may be rules and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be talking, the quote unquote God stuff or
God,
whatever, but
spiritual religion.
God will, God has a way that even in those settings, and I'm not talking about something that I heard, I'm talking about something that I know, and I know you
Yes.
know it as well. He can create settings to where he can create something within you that allows you to communicate and resonate who he is, but be able to do it within the confines where people don't even know directly that
What I'm.
you're drowning them in God without walking around with your Bible in your hand, without
Yeah.
every word out your mouth or quoting the scripture. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm still giving you all the God, and I'm giving it to you by the way I connect with you, by the way I treat you. Your godly presence is in your behavior. It's in your conversation. It's in your
Yes.
interaction with people. And so they're still getting the full effect of him and understanding him. They see that God in you, as you're
Yep.
dealing and coming alongside them. So So I appreciate you sharing, what you did about that, and I'm just kind of, delving into that and thinking, how powerful that is. And I'm sure in the moment, as you were going through all of that years ago, you're like you said, why me? Why this? I'm out here trying to help people, and and I'm feeling helpless. Why I'm going through this, because God had to remind you that while I put this gift in you to do this work. And there's so much more to do, and at much greater levels that you haven't even gotten to yet. You just need to stay mindful of the fact that you're going to still go through storms, but you got to
Yes.
always stay and leaned into me. Stay always connected into me, not only for your betterment, but so that you can be equipped in such a way to where, as I'm
Yes.
bringing in more and more challenging and difficult people in front of you, you'll be able to connect with them in the way that you need to
Navigate.
connect with them at a
Exactly.
high level all the time. But you're being constantly refueled and recharged by me, not by
Yes.
you. you know so
Yes.
yeah, we have to kind of go through that sometime in our own way and manner, and that's why we can't just even get mad about the difficult times. It's not, yeah, it may not be comfortable, it may not be convenient, but it was necessary. It's a part of my journey. it's
Yes.
it's it's why I do what I do. But I couldn't, as you said, I wouldn't be doing what I do now had I
No.
not gone through this. I wouldn't have been ready for it. I wouldn't have been It wouldn't have been on my mind to do that. So well, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. So continuing along, again, you are big on healing, in multiple aspects of the word. And so I want to ask you, when you're finding yourself now, dealing with challenges and adversities, and this is kind of a two part. I'm curious to know, one, you know, what is the process that you like to go through as you deal with challenging moments, whether they're really big or even if they're minor. But also, I'm just curious as to what you're, being one who's behind what behind the promotion of healing. I'm curious to
Yes.
know, how would you define what healing looks like? What is the true meaning of what that is to you? If you had to give it your own definition, what would that definition of healing be, and what it looks like?
Healing to me, in my professional opinion, is growth.
Hmm.
Growth. And why I use the word growth is because when someone thinks of healing, they think that they'll they should be a certain way at a certain time, this time frame, and they're not noticing those baby steps along the way that you have changed in that process. So when you're healing, you're thinking of part A to part B. I mean, from A to B or A to
Hmm.
Z. You're not thinking of all the letters in between that you've accomplished to finally get to Z. So that's a good example. So when we thinking of healing to healed or hurt to healed, you're not thinking of all of the things, the journey, the other things that'll come along the way that you will have to heal from. So growth is the what I like to use as another word to identify, because along the way is always something you're growing from. You're changing. You come from that little seed, now you got leaves. You're blooming, and now eventually you'll have flowers, and you're fully, flowers die and you can water them, they come back to life.
Hmm.
And along the way of healing, that's what it's like. You'll have that time when you feel like you can conquer the world. You life is going so great. And then, like me, with that heartbreak, everything will come crashing down one day. And you'll get through that. But in that moment you don't think so. But you will get through that. And that's just another thing on your healing journey you've accomplished. So you just keep on moving. Keep on moving. And to me, healed, I don't like to say that's impossible, because you heal from situations, but to be a completely healed individual is something that I'll say is the only person I could honestly say is healed is God. Because you're always, even elderly people have things that they go through. Yes, you deal with it differently. You may get through it easily because you've learned all these different tools and techniques every time you go through something. But it's always something in life that's going to get thrown in your path for you to get through. It'll just take less time. You just know how to deal with it. And as for me, my healing in 2 years ago, my what I was doing in 2 years ago was basically trying to find an outlet, somebody to call and tell them what I'm going through. And I noticed all they want to do is listen, kind of just to know what you're going through, but they can't give you the answers you need. I don't care if the person actually went through it. Every situation is different.
Mm-hmm.
And I journaled. I have a journal from that whole time in my life. I have that's just my thing. I journal. I journaled, but also now the first thing I do is pray. And that's in any small, I mean, if I'm having a hard time making a decision about something that may be small to somebody, but everything I do is with intention now. I have to pray on it. So what I go through now, I pray. I'm gonna cry first. Let's make that clear. I gotta cry. Something about me, I just have to cry first. And then I hear God like, okay, we got this. Let's get to work. What do you need in this time? God knows what you need.
Mm-hmm.
He just needs you to ask him to provide it. And for me, it was now anything. I'm God, what do you want from me in this time? I have the Bible app, which I put on my last episode. It's something in that Bible app, a plan that's related to anything you going through. If you need discipline, if you need guidance, discernment, wisdom, it's everything we are going through, God has already been through, witnessed. Everything is in that Bible. And I wasn't spiritually where I am now 2 years ago. It took me to go through that to know that reading like God said all of this will happen. God already knows how I should do this. Um so for me it's really I go to God for everything. My journal is to God. I put it in prayer form now. And I just have to trust, even when it's the hardest thing and my faith is so small. I just look back on that situation because that is I feel the worst thing that happened to me within, I mean, as an adult. I feel that if I can get through that, this little stuff that God put in front of me is nothing. That testimony is what carries me through anything I go through in life. So that's the first thing. I cry, I go to God, I in prayer, journal, therapy. I'm scheduling. I are happy or sad, my therapy is scheduled. We might go
Mm-hmm.
down to monthly when I'm happy, or every 2 months. And if things come up, I'm every 2 weeks. So as needed, if I need it weekly, I do that because I need our population of people to understand that stop seeing therapy as that's just somebody to talk to. I could talk to my best friend if that's what that is. Your best friend knows you. Your best friend has biases towards you. Your best friend thinks they know how you're going to react to something. And honestly, as much as we think these people know us, the people who are the closest to us, it's something about you that you probably still do not show in that friendship 100% or in that relationship 100%. This therapist does not know you, and you go to them teaching them you and how you react to things, and they're able to call you out on certain things and hold you accountable to certain things. Like, this is not the type of person you are trying to become. And also friends can hold you to the past of the person you were years ago, no matter how much you've shown that you've changed. Some people do grow with you, but there's also people that hold you back from growth, and when you talk to them, they'll constantly remind you of how you used to handle things, or how you should handle something related to how you used to be or the way you want to handle it. They were like, girl or boy, you crazy. I would do A, B, and C. This is not like you. And you like, I kind of want to move different this time. So when
Mm-hmm.
you talk to your therapist, it helps you become and bloom and feel comfortable being this person that you are working towards becoming. And that's why I love it. I've been with my therapist since 2019. During right before COVID, it's crazy because I got her literally a couple months before COVID, and having that person with you alone, just like somebody holding your hand other than God along this journey, watching you come to them as depressed, as sad, as broken, hopeless, and watching you and calling you out on your growth. Like, I'm proud of you. Look at the way you talk. You didn't talk like this years ago. You didn't have this hope
Mm-hmm.
years ago. And they keeping this journal on you or this diary on you through all of these years. It's not a friend or family member that you can talk to. This is a paid professional that's there to help you, guide you, and also help you to change and become the person you want to be by helping you work through past trauma that's holding you back from becoming this person you're moving forward to be. And without therapy, I just don't know how to got through that 2 years ago. So
Wow. That's good. That's good stuff. I love again the emphasis on the value in therapy. And I also like when you said, I cry first.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I say that I like that because it's an opportunity to emphasize the importance of, when you're going through stuff, it's okay to have emotions.
Yes.
If those emotions are tears, then let the tears out. If the emotions are, anger and frustration, then let that out. Of course, don't hurt anybody, but if you need to yell out, if you need to scream out, whatever that moment, that emotion is, get it out. Now, what's key is that you don't stay stuck there. So while
No.
it is okay to cry, you don't want to cry for 7, 14, 30 days in a row, nonstop
Mm-mm.
cry. You cry, you compose yourself, and then you take that opportunity to, as you stated, to hear God's voice. Whether it's I'm gonna hear His voice through my journaling, whether it's I'm gonna hear His voice through my prayers, it allows yourself to be, of a clear and open mind. So now you can process. Okay, how do I move forward from this? And of course, that goes right back into what we've been talking about this whole time. Is I'm now igniting the healing process. But I can't heal if I'm holding in all my emotions and everything. I can't heal if I won't get help that's already out there for me to access. If I'm,
Yeah.
again, I can't heal if I'm trying to self medicate. I'm trying to, we're not our own fixers of ourselves.
Nope.
And we have to get beyond ourselves to understand that, and understand that God has placed some people. While He calls for us to come to Him, He's also equipped some people like therapists and others that are gifted and talented, that are going to speak to us and
Yes.
relate to us and communicate to us and hear us in the way that we need to be connected with, so that we can process, so that way we can get through whatever it is that we're up against. It is a doable thing, but we have to follow the steps, and be, receptive to it and be open to it, versus just being, I'm gonna keep it all to myself. I'm gonna work this
Yep.
thing out all by myself. I'm gonna suppress it. It'll go away eventually. No, that's not how that works.
It just
So
build up.
it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you shared that.
Yes.
So if you had an opportunity to speak to, I'm gonna say, I know you're already, a relatively young lady, but it's not, you're not old by any means. But I mean, even if you had to go back and speak to that the young lady, the younger version of yourself who was in that dark space, going through a bad breakup, you had not yet fully embraced, an understanding of who God is, and His importance in your life, and how much of a healer, how much of a comforter, how much of a peacemaker he can be for you. Knowing what you were dealing with at that time, what would you say to that version of you, or even somebody that might be listening right now, a young lady, a young man, even just going through a
Yeah.
difficult relationship, or maybe just a difficult time and feeling lost, not sure where to go. They're just beating themselves up. They don't know what to do, or even suffering some version of depression, of some sort. What would be your words of wisdom to them to help them navigate through such dark times and lonely times, to help them have some hope that there is a way, a way that I can get through this, without being totally consumed by my situation, and that I can rebound, that I can recover, that I can bounce back and still be equipped to do great and magnificent things in this world? What would you say to them?
I would say first to allow yourself to show these emotions, because we beat ourselves up for still crying after 2 days or still feeling upset. We get guilt. I would say it's okay to show this emotion. It's okay to cry. It's okay to go in your bathroom or room, scream like you said if you need to. Let this out because you are hurting. Become aware of how you feeling. You are hurting, and allow yourself to process this in the way that your body wants to. If eh, legally, don't do anything, of course, that can get you in jail. But what I'm saying is, get in a space that you feel is safe. For me, in that time, I would have told myself that you have everything you need right now. You are resilient. You've gotten through everything so far. This is just a step in your life that's creating growth, identity change. You are becoming someone that without this wouldn't exist. What you are going to experience the blessings from this, is much more, much bigger than what you're experiencing. What you're experiencing right now is temporary. It feels like forever because you don't know how you're going to get through it, but it's not for you to know. Your job here is to feel what you feel, turn to God, do what He's asking you to do, and keep moving forward. Because what's for you in life, I know it's cliche what they say, but what's for you in life is literally is for you. And what you're going through right now, you can't be who you are called to be without this experience. You can't do the things you have to do in community. You won't have this experience without this. You won't have the drive you have to learn more about healing. Without this, you wouldn't have read those books. You wouldn't have even met someone that's very supportive of you and help you find your worth. You don't know what you have ahead of you is much more bigger than what you're experiencing now.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. You're basically saying, hey, there's purpose in that pain. There's purpose in
Yes.
it, and you need to, just like you embrace the good and happy times, you need to embrace that pain too. And I know, in like I said, to hear it sounds crazy. Like, why would I
Yes.
embrace pain? Why would I desire that? Because if you know what it means to be in relationship with God, if He's allowed something like challenges and difficult and valley experience
Mm-hmm.
moments to come into your life, that's not a moment to panic. That actually is a moment to celebrate, because that means you're getting ready to get set up for something. And it's not a bad
Yes.
thing that you're getting ready to get set up. He's working something in you, on you, around you, and you're having to go through this, this pressure moment, if you will, just like, the pressure that in the making of a diamond, something is being created, magnificent. So you should actually be excited,
Yeah.
even in the midst of the what feels like chaos and craziness. Hey, because when I know that when I come out of this, there's something waiting for me on the other
Yes.
side that is going to blow my mind. It's going to change things in me in a way that I may not have ever thought could be. It's going to be a time to celebrate. It's going to be a time to be joyous about it. Again, that's why the Bible teaches us, when we go into those difficult times, count it all joy.
Yes.
I tell people all the time, I'm at the point now where, I used to feel some kind of way when things didn't go my way, or what have you. But now, or I felt some kind of way if I was told no, or if on something that I wanted, or the door was closed on
Yes.
something that I wanted. But now I celebrate that as hard, if not harder, than I do the yeses, because I know you either saved me from something that was going to be of harm to
Yep.
me, or if nothing more, you
Exactly.
protected me from settling for something that might have
That
not been bad, but it wasn't good enough for me.
wasn't good enough. It wasn't what
It
you
wasn't. It
had for
wasn't
me.
what you had for me. It was okay,
Exactly.
but it wasn't for me. You had something better, and if you tell me that, hey, I kept you from okay so you could have better, yeah, I'm good with that. Or I kept you
Yeah.
from better so you can have great. I'm good with that. Or I kept you from great so you can have excellent. Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I'd rather take the higher level of it all than again to settle. So that's why we have to, and that's where that patience even comes in, to where just wait.
That
Be
patience work
patient, be
is hard.
still.
That's the hardest part
That's the
is
hard.
being
That's hard.
patient
Yeah.
and being still in the midst of a storm,
Yeah.
a hurricane.
I want this to hurry up and be over.
Yes,
I
like
know
I
you
can't
do,
take this no more.
but hang in there. My timing is perfect. I'm trust it, when it's supposed to be over, it'll be over. You just need to stand firm, stand strong, lean into me, and let me guide you through this. Let me help you ride this out. You're going to
Yes.
be okay. You just got to trust that you're going to be okay. Don't stop worrying, stop panicking, stop freaking out. You're
Yep.
doing that over things that you can't control anyway. So
And
why
we gotta
you?
trust that God does things for us that we can do for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That we God will pull you out if you're not listening to Him telling you to do it on your own. Okay, then now I gotta put you in this tough place where the only thing you can do is leave, or the
Mm-hmm.
only thing you can do is walk away or start over, because that's the only way you will leave that situation, or that you will move on to God has a time limit on everything. And when it's done, it's served, you got what you needed, it's time to go. And that's the hardest part, is the leaving part of it. You
Mm-hmm.
try to find all these good things, and you want to try to build on a little small piece of faith in somebody else rather than that piece of faith that God gives. So I would say embrace it. If God is pulling you out of something, and it's hard for you, don't look back. Do not turn
Absolutely.
back, because you delaying your blessings. You delaying your growth. You delaying your healing process every time you turn backwards and start that cycle over again. And if it's something you are supposed to go back to, you have to do that in God's time, because you still need the lesson of what He's trying to show you in the midst, so that it won't happen again. And that's just what, for me, what I've been using as a tool for me in life, is that if God taking this from me, I'm letting it go, because what's gonna go needs to go, and it is obviously what is not for me. Whether it's friendships, careers, um, relationships, family, whatever it is that I feel is not working right for me. Of course, I pray on it, and I really allow God to make the decision. It's hard. It's really hard for me to walk away from people
Hmm.
that I feel that I once loved, and I always want them to change and want them to become this person that's fitting for the season in my life. But
Because
God tells you,
people who
yes,
encourage and people who love on people, even when those people do you wrong, you still always are looking to try to find the good in them. You're trying
yes,
to give
all
them.
the
You're trying to
time.
find that one glimmer of hope that makes you feel like, okay, I need to give you another opportunity to right the ship or whatever that is. And I'm sorry for interrupting you. That just
No,
triggered in
you're
my
good.
mind. But it's like, but
I know
that's what
how
we
it is
do.
when the thought is
That
there.
that's what
Yes.
we do. And it's not necessarily a good thing. It's good in a general sense that we are people who don't have an issue with giving people second and third and sometimes fourth
Mm,
and fifth and 10th chances.
many.
You know, because God does that for us all the time. So it's in one way it's a godly trait, but then at the same time, you know, we don't, sometimes in the spirit of doing that, sometimes people can take your kindness for weakness,
Yes.
or sometimes we can be trying to help people that don't want to be helped. And so even as encouragers, while it's our natural thing to want to help people, to fix people, to correct the situation or whatever, if I'm
Hmm.
not ready to receive the correction, if I'm not ready to receive the help, then I have to be, even as an encourager, I have to be mindful of that. Okay, you're not ready for it right now. So I'm going to respect your right to not be ready for it right now, but I'm also not going to stay here and take whatever the mistreatment or the abuse or the neglect or whatever that comes with that. I'm going to remove myself completely from the situation, let you go through your journey just like I have to go through my journey. And if it's meant for us to reconnect, we can. But even if it's never meant for us to reconnect, that doesn't mean you can't get through what you need to get through. It doesn't mean I can't get through what I need to get through. It just may mean that we have to do it on our own separate
Yes.
paths. And as you stated earlier, sometimes people, situations, encounters are really just a seasonal event. They were never meant for you to be with
Yep.
long term. You were never meant to. They were somebody that you were going to cross paths with. There was going to be a moment of something that takes place, and then you were supposed to move on. And unfortunately, sometimes we get caught up and we want to stay longer than we were supposed to. And
Yeah.
sometimes, God has to intervene and say, no, this wasn't where you're
Mm-mm.
supposed to. This was not a
Time's up.
stop. This was if you've been on a cruise before, you're like, okay, a cruise, we're going to be on this island for
Yep.
this long, for that period of time. But the boat is leaving at this time and you need to be
Yes.
on it. Don't get stuck here. This is a pass through, you know,
Yes.
you know,
Oh, that's a
so,
good. That's a
so it's
good one.
like sometimes and again, we have to, but even if we miss the boat, knowing what that relationship with God is like and knowing that he loves us just the same, that he's not going to leave us stranded on that island, even though he told us to get on the boat at this time. He told us, he tried to
Might be a
tell us.
little harder to get
We
home.
just wasn't
You.
listening. So you just going to take the long way home. But I'm going to get you home. We're going to make sure you're okay. And
Yeah.
that's what's the beautiful thing about that relationship. So, yeah, but everything that you're saying is just spot on with that. And again, just, even as I think about the title of your podcast, you're talking about healed yet, like with the question mark, and it's like, and I'm thinking, well, have you moved yet? What have you done to ignite the healing? You waiting to be healed, but what have you done to trigger that? What
That's
moves
a
are
whole
you
nother
making?
topic.
I know
Look,
that's a whole
that's
nother
a whole.
topic.
You be
Um,
waiting on God, but God really be waiting on you. Like,
he's like, I'm
okay,
waiting on God. I
I need you
told
to do
you,
something. What
and
are
he's
you
like,
doing?
right. He's like, I heard you. I heard you loud and clear. Everything you said you needed and wanted, and I'm ready to give it to you.
As soon as you
But
start
if
doing,
you, but if you're trying to treat me like some, you're trying to treat me like Santa Claus. You're trying to treat me like the
nah,
genie in the lamp that you just rub on and you just make wishes and They just
Come
happen, and you don't
talk
have
to
to
me
do
when you need
anything.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, you only talk to me when you need something. You don't want to talk to me when everything is, everything is good. No, it's not quite how that works. I'll get you where you want to
Hmm.
go, but you got a
Yep.
part in this too. Can I do it all by myself? Absolutely, I'm God. I can do that, but that's not how I work. You got to do some work
Exactly.
too. So absolutely, absolutely. So before I let you go,
What?
I do
Hmm.
of course want to take the time out to to celebrate you, to love on you, to affirm you. And so please do share with us, if you got any exciting, things that are in the works, projects, anything that, or just any just personal accomplishments that you got
Yeah.
going on right now that you'd like to share, that we can again, you know, extend our blessings to you on, and love on you on, and celebrate all of that, and maybe even connect you with some people who might want to be a part of what you do. Please do share what you got going on right now.
So right now, as we talked about, I do have a podcast on all platforms coming to YouTube soon. It's called Healed Yet with a question mark podcast on all platforms once again, and I talk about different healing journeys for different people. I have different guest speakers on there. I talk about just in particular, like in your waiting season. I think that that's something I've been talking about a lot is surviving your waiting season when it's uncomfortable for you and getting through that tough time. I also have a group on Facebook, a private group that's called the Healing Circle. I'm also currently working on creating a journal, a guided journal, since that is something that I feel was very helpful to me. And I noticed in my career, a lot of people don't understand, don't even know how to journal. What am I just writing down stuff? So in this journal, I'm putting a lot of different like feelings, ways that help you really learn how to journal, teaching along the way the benefits of it, giving you topics that can help you expand on how you feeling. And that's I'm still working on. It's kind of delayed, but I'm hoping within the next month or two that I can have it in e journal style, and eventually I'll have it in physical copies. Also, go follow the Hill Yet podcast. I'm working on my website, so eventually all of this stuff that I'm talking about will be in one place because this is a journey as well. But that's really the major things I'm working on, and starting to get back into coaching. The minute that I get these other things straightened out, I will start doing group coaching first, and just focusing on specific topics that I feel that is big in society today, and eventually individual coaching once I get to that period of time when I have that much time to do it. So I'm so thankful for you allowing me to be on your show. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's been a pleasure, Majaya, having you on board, sharing your story, your journey, helping to educate us a little bit about some things along the way, and just being an inspiration. I have no doubt in my mind that somebody is going to tune into this episode, and they're going to be blessed by what you've shared. Because everything that you're talking about is just very relatable, everyday stuff that both
It
men
is.
and women deal with, but don't quite know how to navigate their way through. They're feeling lost, they're feeling discouraged, they're feeling hopeless. And so people like you doing the work that you do is so necessary, so impactful. And the stuff that you just even shared just now, that's in the works, the journal, the just understanding what that means. Is I've heard, I've never really journaled before, but I've known people who very big on it, and they love it. But there may be somebody who wants to journal, but they just don't quite understand, the
Mhm.
concept of it all, and the value in it. And people like yourself are positioning by creating, your own original product, and sharing that with people so that they can be more comfortable. Just like we
Yes.
talked about getting more comfortable with having therapy and things of that nature. So please, anybody that's checking this out, be on the lookout for the journal coming out, pretty soon. And, tune in to her podcast, follow her on all the various social media platforms. She's not difficult to find. She has a very unique, beautiful name. You can find her. And, get connected with our groups of coming alongside people in the discussion of healing, because we all need to be healed. There's always going to be something, whether we make it known to people or not, whether we cover it up or leave it wide open. We all got wounds. We all got, damages and hurts and pains and sufferings that we go through. And it's a good thing. It's a great thing, I should say, to not only have God to rely upon, but of course, knowing that God has placed people that may be right within arm's length of us that we're not even, making the connection to. That could be the very source of people that we need to connect with. That these are the people who need to be in our circle because they
Yes.
understand, they know what you're dealing with. They're dealing with it too, and but as a community, we can learn how to heal together. We can learn how to do a better job at it and do it in a more healthy way. Versus the whole suppression and I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to hide my feelings. I don't want to, I want to fix it all by myself. We weren't created to do life by ourselves. And
Yes.
every now and then we need help, and there's nothing to be ashamed in asking for help.
That's
So
true.
so I pray that pray over everything that you're doing,
Thank you.
Majaya, and I'm just excited for you, and then just looking forward to hearing more and more of how this whole life journey, this calling on your life, evolves itself. You of course are welcome to come back anytime on the show. We can jump off into some other topics of discussion.
Yes.
So you definitely could take that into consideration that door is always open for you should you choose to
Thank you.
step in it again. So it's
Same over
definitely been a
here.
pleasure. Absolutely, absolutely. It's been a pleasure meeting you, hearing your story, and for those my listeners, if you've enjoyed the content for today, you like what you've experienced in this moment, please subscribe, share, comment, like. All of the above, because here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, as I started off at the top of the show, it's all about empowering, it's all about encouraging, it's all about uplifting, being authentic and transparent in the sharing of our stories, reminding you that no matter what it is you're going through, we all go through our storms, all go through our valley experiences, but there is a way to make our way through that, to persevere through it. It doesn't have to be the end of our story just because we're going through challenging times. And we don't want to dismiss those challenging times as being something that I wish this wasn't happening. I hate that it's happening to me. Understand that it couldn't happen if God didn't allow it. And if He's allowing it, then He's working something in you or for you, setting you up, preparing you, equipping you to be able to utilize in the way that He designed for you to be. So with that said, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is a place where your story is your glory, where relationships are relevant, and where the journey is in your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and thank you so much for tuning in. And until next
Thank
time,
you.
be strong, be blessed, keep fighting that good fight, hang in there, and understand that you don't have to do life alone. You don't have to go through your difficult times alone. God is always there for us to lean into, to call upon, to be our comforter, to be our support that we need to overcome any and everything that we may encounter in our lives. So until next time, take care of
Yes.
yourselves.
Bye.